Welcome to Let's Be Perfectly Queer,
a queer podcast creating space to talk about all things queer.
My name is Archie.
And I'm Katie.
And we are your hosts.
Questions of how you identify, seeking answers to clarify. Whether you're queen
or somewhere in between, let's be perfectly queer.
And we're back.
We are back. And what are we talking about today?
Today we were talking about Minus 18's National Youth Survey.
Yeah, so on this episode, we're going to be talking about the different elements in the survey that Minus 18 released recently and just discussing some of the different things that are impacting on our LGBTQIA plus youth from the ages of 13 to 25 across Australia.
Ooh, how interesting.
Yeah, I think we're just going to go straight into this one, aren't we?
Yeah, sounds perfect. Let's get into today's episode.
So on today's episode, we are talking about the National Survey of LGBTQIA plus Youth Voice in Australia. So this is a survey that is by Minus 18, and they've recently released this National Survey report, and it's titled Queer Youth Now 2025.
Okay.
I think it was released on the 11th of June, because that's when the Instagram post kind of said it was released, but I couldn't see the date on the actual survey.
Yeah.
And so it's a survey of LGBTQIA plus youth in Australia from the ages of 13 to 25.
Oh, wow.
The survey has been co-designed between LGBTQIA plus youth, data analysis, and youth mental health professionals. This way we can get a real honest snapshot of what life looks like for these young people across Australia.
That's such a good idea because it really captures both like the youth perspective, the data perspective, but then the people in the middle who do understand a little bit more of the nuances of like what data we need to capture because these are the issues we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Does it say how long they did the survey for? Like when they actually did it?
They did have the dates, but I didn't really go into that.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So quick explainer for those who don't know what Minus 18 is, because we have listeners around the world. Yeah. So Minus 18 is an Australian charity dedicated to improving the lives of LGBTQIA plus youth. They believe every LGBTQIA plus young person deserves a safe and welcoming world. And they work towards that through youth programs, education, and awareness campaigns. They also provide free resource packs for schools. So that's something that I was able to do when I was at my school, and I was able to get free resource packs.
They do a lot of things. I think Minus 18 do a lot for education that you can bring out into places as well, which is really cool. I've always seen them at like Pride or them sponsoring events, which is really cool.
Yeah. They also do a lot of free PDs for people wanting to learn about LGBTQIA plus youth or just the community in general. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bloody awesome.
So Queer Youth Now pulls together the voices of 2,724 young people from across the country. Here's a quick snapshot of who participated. So there was 61% were 12 to 18-year-olds.
Oh.
49% are currently in high school. 38%, which is a bigger number than I thought, live in regional, rural or remote locations.
Oh, wow.
64% are transgender diverse or non-binary, and 56% are neurodivergent.
We have to do an episode of the overlapping.
It's on the list. It's on the list. It's just there's so much research for that. So it's a big, big topic. It'll probably take me months to research all the stuff.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
For context, what we're talking about is there's been research and it's found that a lot of queer individuals have neurodivergency. And on the flip side, a lot of neurodivergents are queer. So it's just really interesting, the correlation. So coming to you at some point in time in the future.
Yeah, it's a topic that it's on my list. It's just there's so many.
Yeah.
It's a big one. So let's have a look at some of the key findings from the survey. So 89% of LGBTQIA plus young people have had experienced bullying, harassment and violence in their lifetime.
Were you surprised to...
No.
Yeah. I think like in a lifetime is a very good descriptor of that one.
And 57% were just in the past year.
Yeah. It's good to know the difference between the two, isn't it?
Yeah. So, 89%,
57.
yeah, so 89% in a lifetime, in a lifetime, and then 57% in just the last year.
Yeah.
So 99% of LGBTQIA plus young people said that making queer friends is an important part of their lives. 86% of LGBTQIA plus young people said seeing someone wearing rainbow or ally accessories made them feel safer and more like they belonged.
Oh, but we all feel like that. That's such a good point.
Yeah. 70% said they had been negatively impacted by the news and media's portrayal of LGBTQIA plus issues in the past year.
Yeah.
So in the last year was 70%, but overall is 92%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's huge.
And it is huge. And I feel like that reflects how we all feel. Like I think it's a bit hard for anybody to feel like the news doesn't affect us in this day and age. And then specifically queer individuals, yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's if I could have guessed the number, I would have guessed the 90s, I reckon.
73% of LGBTQIA plus young people said they've felt pride and euphoria in being LGBTQIA plus just this past year. So that's amazing.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, so that's really good. And that might be like once in the year, or it might be, we're not sure about the specifics, but the fact that they have felt euphoria, that's great.
That's gorgeous.
79% of LGBTQIA plus young people said they've felt a sense of acceptance and inclusion in relation to their identity at some point in the past year. So what do you think this says about the balance between visibility and harm? Do you think there's any correlation there?
What do you mean by that?
Visibility doesn't only mean positive visibility, right? So we're looking at things at the news, we're looking at more visibility in media. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think it's adding to the harm?
As in, like, if you're seeing it, it harms yourself, or by being queer and out there?
With more visibility, do you think there also comes more harm? In general, do you think, there may be more bullying, harassment?
Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what, if you've got greater like if you're out there, people are always going to find something to comment on. That's just life.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like when you're doing a presentation, no matter what, if people are looking at you, they'll find something to critique in their brain, just the way their brains work.
Yeah.
But if you're specifically identifying as something, it gives them a greater opportunity to be like, oh, okay. They know a little bit more about you. And by doing that, you are being true to yourself. You're being a little bit vulnerable just because people can critique you and people can be like, well, I don't like that. So I think that it depends on if you allow it to harm you or not as well, or if you're in a state to, I don't mean allow it to harm you, but do you know how like there are certain times in life where you're impervious to people's words and you're a bit like, you know what, I don't give a fuck what you say. But there are certain times where you're like, oh, it really eats you up. I think it also depends on that element of it. Like we're all so so complicated that your feelings about something from one day to another can definitely change. So like sometimes I'm like, motherfuckers, no one can hurt me. But like sometimes it can. So yeah, I think with greater visualization, it can lead to more harm.
Yeah.
But it all depends on how you tackle it as well.
Yep.
What do you reckon?
I think it's both sided, and it was still like early 2000s that it was still, like 2004 was still illegal to be gay or something in Australia, something ridiculous like that. We've got a long way to go. It's only been, 20 years?
Yeah.
There's still a long way to go.
And I guess the other side you're saying as well is that you've got to have the visualization for people to be aware that this is something that's normal within humans.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
So like you can't really shy away. The more you shy away, the more you kind of prove that it's not normal.
Yeah.
In a way, I don't know. It's almost like there's no winning, but there's no losing. Is there no losing?
It just needs to become normalized.
Yeah.
And we're still a bit away from that, because I recently went on the Lesbi Honest podcast and I did talk about this, and it was something about whether representation in the classroom was harmful or helpful. And I said it's both, depending on the circumstance and whether the representation is coming from someone who is a queer teacher with knowledge, or whether it is coming from a poster and then a teacher is questioning about it and they don't know how to answer. And then it stigmatizes it because it makes it like, oh, we don't kind of talk about that, because if they're uncomfortable, you make it uncomfortable for the students, and therefore it's an uncomfortable topic to talk about. So I think, it's kind of like that. Until we have the language and understanding for everyone, there is going to be people who misunderstand and people who want to attack rather than learn.
Do you know what's so interesting? When you were talking about that, I was just thinking that it's almost like you're getting a teacher to teach about a book that they haven't written or they haven't read themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where misinterpretation comes into it.
Yes.
And then they get asked questions about it, and then they've got to make up what they think they know about it rather than just reading the book.
Yeah. And that's all they need to do. Read the book.
Yeah.
So what about when it comes to anti-LGBTQIA plus hate? Here are the findings in the report. 55% of LGBTQIA plus young people said they've been excluded or discriminated against due to their identity. 1 in 2 LGBTQIA plus young people were yelled at, insulted, or verbally harassed in the past year due to anti-LGBTQIA plus hate. 1 in 10 LGBTQIA plus young people experienced physical violence in the past year due to the hate. 89% of LGBTQIA plus young people have experienced some form of anti-LGBTQIA plus hate in their lifetime. 70% of LGBTQIA plus young people said they aren't out to everyone at school. And 79% of LGBTQIA plus young people said they aren't out to everyone at work. Were you surprised about any of those stats?
The out at school and out at work, I kind of understand it. I don't think that would change even as you get older. I still think there's always going to be a percentage of people that you might not want to tell or you just don't really need to.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be as, when you're like, oh yeah, that's Bob from accounts. Yeah, Bob's gay. It doesn't matter if he's gay or not.
Yeah.
So some people just don't know, not necessarily through omission or anything, but there's just going to be people that you just don't tell because it's not like, hi, I'm Bob, I'm gay. Like, you don't have to. But I think that it's a bit sad in some ways as well.
Because they have to mask a part of their identity.
Yeah, I think it is as well, isn't it? I don't know. Were you surprised with any of the statistics?
No, not really.
Especially the, I guess the violence and the... Do you think it's gotten worse in the last couple of years?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was getting better. I want to say maybe 5 years ago it was getting better, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And then it's got worse after COVID.
Yeah.
It's I don't know why. Well, it's probably, the same kind of people who we grew up with in schools who were quite homophobic having kids. But I can't really say for certain. That's just me having a hypothesis of maybe why that's why it's getting worse. But yeah, no, post-COVID, the LGBTQIA plus hate got a lot worse.
Yeah. Sad, isn't it?
Yeah. Some additional findings. On average, LGBTQIA plus young people first question or realise their identity at the age of 12.
Ooh. Yeah, not surprised.
70% of LGBTQIA plus young people said visible displays of support make them feel more accepted at school.
Yeah.
71% of LGBTQIA plus young people had attended an LGBTQIA plus student group when one was available at their school. 92% of young people wish the people in their life had more knowledge about their identity to help them feel accepted. Yeah. LGBTQIA plus young people were most likely to turn to their friends for support. So that was 88% of them were the most likely to turn to their friends over things like online communities, influencers, family, etc. What I thought was really sad was school staff was only 18% and was in the bottom 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I wouldn't have in high school.
And, and this is what we spoke about in a previous episode. You're only as inclusive as your least inclusive employee.
Yeah.
And kids know. So, yeah, that fact that, it was in the bottom 3.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of private schools are still based about some form of religion just because, you've got Methodist, Presbyterian, you've got all the other ones.
But there's a lot more public schools that outweigh the private schools these days.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I can only speak to what my experience was. And it was very much negative towards anybody who was queer.
Yeah, same.
I can't imagine. I would outwardly have hidden my identity from my teachers just for, first of all, my own safety. So I didn't get told off or detention. Also, they didn't have negative perceptions over me and therefore my grades would have been down.
Yeah.
It affects everything. You got to be smart about it sometimes. Yeah. Well, when I was younger, and it was just really fucking sad.
5 years ago, whenever COVID was. Before COVID, it was getting better, and there was improvements and there was less bullying than there has been the post-COVID times, which is sad. But it also shows that Department of Education is still too scared to make a difference, And hopefully what's happening with the WA reform, that's going to give $1 million to LGBTQ plus reforms here in WA.
I think the other reason why people turn to their queers is that They turn to their peers is that it doesn't mean that it's such a big thing. Sometimes you go to people, or when you were younger, you would go to adults and they'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck off. Can you just
they make a big deal out of it.
And you don't need that a lot of the time. That's making things bigger than they are, because it actually isn't. I think the whole conversation about who you love and who you identify as is not a really big conversation for anybody else apart from yourself. The fact that people make it a big conversation is actually really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because then people are like, oh, I can comment on it. And it's like, you can't. It's not about you. There were some other statistics I was going to say, but I've forgotten what it was. Oh, the lanyards thing. I love that. When we were at IKEA recently, there was this lovely older lady who was wearing one of the queer lanyards, the flag that includes the trans, like the trans arrow. And I was like, do you know what? I would never have guessed that from them because they were aged, I would imagine, 60s. And I was like, you know what? Me knowing that you support the queer community makes me feel good. There's something in here, in my heart, I'm pointing to my heart, not that anyone knows because nobody's in the room with us, that just like, it just makes me feel better about it. It just makes me feel seen without having to be seen.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. Like at work, my lanyard's got like queer flags. It's got queer stuff on it. It's actually like, it got an Aboriginal design on it, which I absolutely love. But I think it's so important. And whenever I see, especially people who are higher up in our hospital hierarchy who are wearing queer like lanyards or even badges, it just makes me feel really happy that I'm like, yes, this is a queer friendly space. This is a friendly space for everybody, which is unbiased, which is what healthcare should be. It's beautiful. Yeah. Warms my little queer heart.
And and then because I've been doing a relief at a few different schools and stuff, and when I walk in and I see one of the front office people or someone in admin wearing a lanyard, that's a massive difference because you barely see that.
Yeah.
Especially in high schools, I don't know what it is. Yeah, you barely see that. So when I see that, I'm like, good on you.
You're talking about like a queer lanyard, not just a lanyard, right?
Yeah. Well, like, because you're talking about, you know what I mean?
You're like, what? Just a lanyard?
You know what I mean. Less than 50% of students said there was an LGBTQIA plus student group at their school.
Yeah.
But what was interesting here is, so that was from the under 18, so like our kind of current people that were in school.
Sure.
For those who are over 18, that was even less, so that was 29%.
I'm not surprised.
In their time. So there is an improvement, which is good.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Are you surprised with that?
No.
When you first started teaching, was there any queer groups or anything? Right.
No. Not when I first started. Not that I was aware of. Barely. Yeah.
Yeah.
1 in 4 LGBTQIA plus young people said they have no safe adults or teachers at school that they can talk to about their identity.
Oh.
And only 6% of LGBTQIA plus young people felt the government does a good job of understanding and listening to people like them.
I was going to say something really horrible. I was going to be like, well, the government doesn't really listen to anybody, but our government is a lot better because we're Australian. I think it's hard to feel heard when you aren't represented.
Yep.
And you have people who you don't see yourselves with, you can't rapport with, you can't figure out. Because there are a lot of government officials who do represent queer rights.
Yes.
There's a lot of people, individuals. There's a lot of different groups. Politicians, thank you. And I was like, people up there doing those things. My brain fog's going great today. There's a lot of politicians that do actually have fundamentals in understanding what the queer community needs. There's a lot of people in the Greens Party who do. There are some in Labor. It's one of those things that people do, but it doesn't tend to be on the front of their agenda because the front of their agenda is very much like the major things that the country needs to do, which is like health, education, finance, trade, all that kind of stuff. Whereas the humanities and the cultural come under a different portfolio that is more what do we do rather than it's the things that are done in the backbone that doesn't tend to come forward. But even with so we're in WA. Yeah.
Everybody always thinks we're over in Sydney for some reason.
Yeah.
But we are in WA.
If you're doing an interview with us, guys, we're in Perth, WA, not Perth, Scotland. We're not in Sydney. We're in WA.
Yeah.
We are far away from anybody else.
We are.
Our time zone is very similar to Japan.
Yes.
If you're ever wondering.
Yeah.
Anyway, in Australia with Anthony Albanese, he has had such a large visualization within the queer community. He was in Pride. There's a lot of money that's gone into queer groups. I think there was 2.1 million towards the queer community or queer
I'm not sure.
We're talking about it in a couple of episodes past. I can't remember. But anyway, they're trying to actually inject some money into the queer community, into queer foundations to support our queer community. So it's there are people out there who do it. It's just that what our wants and needs are might be different to what the government can provide.
Yeah.
Understanding that our budget is very low, understanding the whole country / the whole world is in an economic crisis.
Yeah.
And there are only certain things that you can do, understanding with what's also happening around the world. So it's hard. I can see that people might, young individuals might not feel seen or heard by the government. But I think, unfortunately, that I don't imagine that is ever going to rise, that statistic. Or maybe a little bit.
We'll see, because, they're changing the census and to have that one question. And, in WA, there is the 1 million going towards LGBTQ plus reform. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. So here are the top 6 actions LGBTQIA plus youth said helped them feel accepted. Number 1 was, accept us for who we are. Show us we belong by listening to us, affirming us, and treating us like anyone else. Number 2, learn about LGBTQIA plus lives. Understand our identities, history, and experiences means we don't have to explain it.
Yeah.
Big one. Yeah.
That is such a big one.
I constantly get that all the time, having to explain things to people. And that's half the reason we started this podcast, because it was always like my job to educate people, where it shouldn't really be my job to educate people.
No.
Yeah. Number 3, get our names and pronouns right. Oof. This makes us feel safer and models respectful behaviour for others to follow. 4, use inclusive language. The words you use demonstrate your understanding of us and shape how safe and seen we feel. Number 5, respect our privacy. Don't ask inappropriate questions or share information about our identity without our permission. And number 6, challenge stereotypes and LGBTQIA plus hate. Call out assumptions and negative behaviours when you see them, even the subtle ones.
Yeah.
And I think the last 2 are the ones that teachers are doing wrong in schools.
Yeah. You've seen it firsthand, haven't you?
Those are the 2 that definitely teachers are doing them wrong, and would add to the fact that only 18% feel safe with school staff. Yeah.
I think what they're saying there is really reflective of how I feel still as a queer individual. Yeah, I think they've fleshed it out really well, and I think it represents the queer community pretty well, from my perspective at least. Yeah.
So I'm going to share some queer joy. So after all the stats, I just wanted to share this part of the survey. So it's a part of the survey where the youth could share personal stories of joy, affirmation, and hope. So first one, I came out to my first university class, and a woman from class came to talk to me because her 10-year-old transgender son had never met another trans person. I was able to show a 10-year-old kid that there is a future for us.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
I am grateful for my queer barber. He understands how important haircuts are to me as a non-binary person. I've been going there for 2 years, and my reflection has finally caught up to my soul. I feel like me on the outside and inside.
Oh, I love how that's going at the moment. There seem to be a lot of queer barbers popping up on social media.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's just so beautiful. And you go to a queer barber and it's just...
Studio Misfits.
Yeah. So beautiful. It's lovely seeing people go in there and come out of there and feels like so chuffed with themselves. I love it.
When my best friend came out to me, it made me feel so proud, because without each other, we wouldn't have had the courage to be ourselves. I found euphoria through my friendship with her and my own unique relationship with gender through my autism. I feel things so different, and it's beautiful.
That's gorgeous.
I saw a wonderful moment of a queer Olympian celebrating her victory with her girlfriend at the 2024 Olympics. It was really special to see a queer woman being represented to the world as an Olympian. We can achieve anything.
I love queers in sport. Love it.
You saw that recently one of the Matildas got married to their partner. So Ellie Carpenter got married to their partner, Danielle, and they both were on the same soccer team. I want to say for, was it Netherlands, a Dutch team, something like that?
Yeah, I feel like they were.
Do you have your own story of queer joy you'd want to share? Anything that's brought you queer joy in the last week or so?
I think in the last month, when we've been catching up with friends, we've got a friend who is specifically non-binary or going down a journey of finding themselves.
Of their gender identity, yep.
Yeah. And it's been really beautiful just having little queer moments with them, which I really just enjoy. I love being a safe space for people who are queer. Definitely. And it just warms my heart when I'm like, ooh, it was gorgeous. It honestly is making me a little bit tearful right now.
Yeah.
But it was just gorgeous. And I love being there for people in the same way as like, there's nothing quite like being seen and feeling seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, really gorgeous. What about yourself?
That was probably be the same moment, yeah.
Yeah. We all had a moment.
We did. It was like the world stopped and it was just the 3 of us and it was beautiful.
So cute. I love it.
And we're out in public and everything. It was beautiful. So how the survey works, so 45 questions in total using a mix of multiple choice, scale-based and open-ended formats. And the participants were young LGBTQIA plus people aged between the 13 to 25 living in Australia. Overall, only 6% of the responders were from WA.
Oh, but you were saying that there was a lot of regional responders.
Which I'm really surprised. It'd be, I think, mainly like Melbourne, like regional stuff, because that's where Vic made up the largest with 39%. But I think minus 18 is based in Melbourne and do more events there for the queer youth where they do like Ida Hobbit events and prom and that kind of stuff. So obviously a lot of the kids and the young adults are going to know about them more because a lot of people over here don't know about minus 18.
Yeah. I feel like they've only been around here for about 5 years or something.
I've only heard about them when I searched for something. Otherwise, I didn't know because I was searching for some resources for school and that's the only reason they came up. I never heard about them before.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of kids who don't know who minus 18 is here over in WA. So I'm not surprised about that statistic. But, it just shows that there needs to be some form of branch over here if it's so small at 6%.
Yeah.
Because then it really doesn't cover what the youth are experiencing here in WA, particularly if they've only got 6% of the respondents being from WA.
True. And it's the themes are going to be the same throughout our queer community. So if there are queer youth across in the eastern states who are having these kind of issues, it's better to have support everywhere if you can.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this episode, this report shows us two things. LGBTQIA plus young people are full of strength, joy and pride, but they're also facing a lot of challenges, especially in schools, online and in the media. The good news, there are small ways we can all help by listening, learning, using the right names and pronouns, showing support in lanyards, posters, pins, and just being a safe person. And if you're a queer young person listening right now, we see you. We understand. We were in your shoes. You're not alone. Your identity matters, and there is a future where you get to feel safe, loved, proud of who you are. So yeah, thanks for tuning into this episode.
Well put.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God.
So thanks for listening to the episode. We'll pop the full report in the show notes. Well, not the full report, the link to the full report, because that's going to take up all the thing if you want to read more.
Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe if you've enjoyed it. We would love it if you could give us 5 stars so we can make our way to more LGBTQ plus individuals out there and they can find us.
Yeah, so thank you for getting all the way through, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next time, I hope that we have been
perfectly queer.
Let's be perfectly queer.